Assalamualaikum. Today we will discuss the metal extrusion process. Extrusion is one of the type of metal forming process. Extrusion is one of the process in metal forming. Okay. Extrusion is a forcing of metal flow through the die. Forcing of metal which flow through the die. So there are many type of extrusion, such as the metal impact extrusion, direct extrusion, direct extrusion, and also we have an indirect extrusion, and the last one is a hydrostatic extrusion. Okay. And last one is a hydrostatic extrusion. Okay, extrusion is a pushing material through the die for the purpose of reducing or changing its cross-sectional area. So usually can be done in many materials such as plastic, metal, and alloy. But in this case, we will only discuss on the metal extrusion. We discuss only on the metal extrusion. Sorry. Only on the metal extrusion. And typical product such as railing for sliding doors, window frame, tube, aluminum ladder frame, other products such as beam, railing, railroad, and any other product which is long and continuous cross section. The advantage of using this process is we are able to get the high production quantity, low tooling cost, and can be done in cold and hot extrusion. Okay, we go through the direct extrusion. Like we discussed before, there are 4 types of extrusion process: direct, indirect, hydrostatic extrusion, and impact extrusion. For direct extrusion, usually also known as a forward extrusion, means that the raw material is pushed forward through the die and flow through the die. This is the die. This is the workpiece, billet. This is the die. This is the die and die backer. And at the right side, we have a pressing stem and dummy block. Okay, so the pressing stem will move to the left and push the dummy block, and pressing stem and dummy block push the billet move forward to the left and pass through the die. And beside the die they have a die backer to support the die, and then the raw material will go through the die opening and will come out from the die according to the shape of die opening. So in this case, we can see that billet is reduced in terms of diameter. Okay, and then this process can be done in hot working and also in the cold working. For indirect extrusion, also, can be known also with the reverse, inverted or backward extrusion, where the die moves forward to an extruded billet. Advantage of the process where we can reduce the effect of friction between the billet and the die. Okay, we focus into the process, what happened in the during the process. Okay, in this case is a reverse or opposite from the direct extrusion. Okay, we can see here, this is the billet, and beside the billet and behind the billet you have a dummy block. And then this is the die, tool stem or die. So the die will move to the right. Dummy block will stay stationary, only the tool stem move to the right. When it moves to the right, automatically it will push the billet to go through the opening of the die and go out from the die with the small size in diameter. Okay. So how to differentiate between direct extrusion and indirect extrusion? Okay, we can see from the direct extrusion, okay, the moving part is the pressing stem and dummy block. Okay, the die will stay stationary. Differ from the indirect extrusion, the die will move where the dummy block will stay stationary. So this is that's why we call it the reverse or inverted. Okay. And for hydrostatic extrusion, so the name of hydro means that they may involve liquid, application of liquid or fluid. So in this case, they use the fluid, usually oil, and use a hydrostatic pressure. Okay, we can see from the figure. Okay, here we have a pressing stem, and then they have a liquid inside, usually oil, the green one, and then this is the our raw material. It can be a billet, metal workpiece, and make sure all this area is properly sealed, so no leakage. And then we push the pressing stem to the left, and will increase when the pressing stem move to the left. It will compress the fluid or oil inside the area, this area, and it will increase the pressure of the fluid. So the pressure of the fluid will push the raw material towards the opening of the die, and then the material will flow through the opening of the die and go out from the die with a small size in the diameter. Okay, so the hydrostatic extrusion is look like similar with the direct extrusion, where the pressing stem will push the raw material to pass through the die. Okay, same process where the pressing stem will push the fluid, and the fluid will increase the pressure, and the pressure will force the raw material to pass through the opening of the die. The advantage of using the hydrostatic pressure is where the hydrostatic pressure is a pressure will occur at the around the surface of the material will be forced, so we will get the high quality of the product. And also we can reduce the friction because the application of or the existence of the oil will keep reducing the friction between the die and the billet. For the impact extrusion, impact is means that the force is we apply very short time of force to the part. Unlike the hydrostatic direct and indirect extrusion, the force is keep continuous applied to the workpiece. But for the impact extrusion, we apply the force only once, right? And the impact occur in the very shortest time. Okay. Okay, usually the part is usually very thin part produced using the impact extruded part as the punch impact to the work part rather than simply applying the pressure to it. Shorter stroke means a very short period of time. Okay, thank you very much. And then next lecture we will continue on the other process of the metal forming.